Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Literary Lutheran Reads a Book of Concord. Today we are continuing to go through Article 15, Human Traditions. Why do we need words on a subject so clear? If the adversaries defend these human services as meriting justification, grace, and the forgiveness of sins, they simply set up the kingdom of Antichrist. The kingdom of Antichrist is a new service of God devised by human authority rejecting Christ, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. Just as the kingdom of Muhammad has services and works through which it wishes to be justified before God, it does not hold that people are freely justified before God through faith for Christ's sake. So the papacy will also be a part of the kingdom of Antichrist if it defends human services as justifying in this way. For honor is taken away from Christ when they teach that we are not justified freely through faith for Christ's sake, but by such services. This is especially true when they teach that such services are not only useful for justification, but are also necessary as they maintain in Article 7. There they condemn us for saying that for true unity of the Church, it is not necessary that rites instituted by human beings should be alike everywhere. Daniel chapter 11 verse 38 indicates that new human services will be the very form and basic principle of the kingdom of Antichrist. He says this, "He shall honor the God of fortresses instead of these. A God whom his fathers did not know he shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones." Here Daniel describes new services because he says that the fathers were ignorant of the God that shall be worshipped. Although the Holy Fathers themselves had both rites and traditions, they did not maintain that these are useful or necessary for justification. They did not cloud over Christ's glory and office, but taught that we are justified by faith for Christ's sake and not for the sake of these human services. The Fathers celebrated human rites for the body's benefit. For example, by such rites the people would know what time they should gather, so that, for the sake of example, all things might be done in order and properly in the churches, 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40, and that the common people might receive a sort of training. Distinctions of times and the variety of rites help in reminding the common people. The Fathers maintain the rites for these reasons. We also conclude it is proper for these reasons to keep traditions, good customs. We are greatly surprised that the adversaries argue for another design of traditions that they may merit the forgiveness of sins, grace, or justification. What else is this than to honor God with gold and silver, with precious stones, as Daniel chapter 11 verse 38 says, that is, to hold that God becomes reconciled by a variety in clothing, ornaments, and by similar rites, which are countless in human traditions. Paul writes to the Colossians that traditions have an appearance of wisdom. Indeed they have. Good order is very fitting in the church and is for this reason necessary. Human reason, because it does not understand the righteousness of faith, naturally imagines that such works justify people because they reconcile God. Among the Israelites, the common people thought this, and by this opinion increased such ceremonies. Among us, ceremonies have grown in the monasteries. Human reason also thinks this about bodily exercises such as fasts. Although the purpose of these bodily exercises is to hold the flesh in check, reason falsely adds that they are services that justify. As Thomas writes, "Fasting avails for the extinguishing and prevention of guilt." These are Thomas's words. The look of wisdom and righteousness in such works tricks people. The examples of the saints are added. When people want to imitate these, they imitate, for the most part, the outward exercises. They do not imitate their faith. After this look of wisdom and righteousness has deceived people, then countless evils follow. The gospel about the righteousness of faith in Christ is clouded over, and empty confidence in such works succeeds. Then God's commandments are clouded over. These human works assume the title of a perfect and spiritual life. They are preferred more than the works of God's commandments, works of one's own calling, the administration of the state, the management of a family, married life, and the bringing up of children. Compared with those ceremonies, the latter are judged to be ungodly, so that they are exercised by many with doubting consciences. For it is known that many have left the administration of the state and married life to welcome these human ceremonies as better and holier. Nor is this enough. When the belief has possessed minds that such ceremonies are necessary for justification, consciences are in miserable anxiety because they cannot exactly perform all ceremonies. How many are there who could list all these ceremonies? There are immense books indeed, whole libraries, containing not a syllable about Christ, about faith in Christ, about the good works of one's own calling. They only collect the traditions and interpretations by which they are sometimes made quite strict and sometimes relaxed. How that most excellent man Gerson is tortured while he searches for the steps and extent of the rules, yet he is not able to fix mitigation in a definite grade. Meanwhile, he deeply regrets the dangers to godly consciences that this strict interpretation of the traditions produces. This has been the Literary Lutheran Reads a Book of Concord, and I wish you a blessed day.